Paul describes the great mystery of our faith being that Christ lives in you. Now, you can assume that because they say Christ, they mean Jesus. But this is not necessarily the case according to different beliefs. There are other viewpoints and interpretations on this where Christ is referred to as the pineal gland, and other interpretations is translated to be the manifestation of the all. So if you're saying that the mystery of what you believe is that Christ lives in you, then you're saying the essence of all things, what makes all things consist and what sustains all things with his very own vibration is what Christ is. This is in you, solidifying everything around you, being a creator of everything around you, being a sustainer and a maintainer of everything around you. So Christ lives in you. The problem that we have is a constant expression of the scriptures, not the scriptures, but a constant expression of people using the scriptures, quoting the scriptures, merely reciting them, rote and routine, just chanting them without expressing the nuance, because the real ministry is in the delivering of the nuance. They have to see whether or not wisdom is there. It doesn't matter how dramatically you can read a book, is not gonna have the same power as someone who can tell you what the book is about. The person who can tell you what the book is about is gonna hold more power. But instead, you have this contest of how well other people can read it versus how well other people can interpret it. With this disconnect, you have really an expression of Christ being without us instead of Christ being within us, because we keep putting middlemen and titles and positions as not just intermediaries, but it goes a little deeper in the spiritual realm in terms of soul sovereignty, SOUL sovereignty, where you're really creating an unnecessary middleman for yourself. This is the real reason why in the storyline they have Jesus being killed off. He was all about getting the middleman out of the way, which is why he was often pressed, tested, oppressed, persecuted by who the middleman was at that time. Because he was coming out of Jewish culture, so because he led a life that was different from the culture he came up in, the resistance was there. Because he was living in a principle where Christ lives in you and there's no middleman between you and God. Like he told his disciples, why do you call on me? You can go to the Father directly. Because, again, you have Psalms and different Proverbs and the wisdom literature and the smack dab in the middle of the Bible that talks about people not being able to understand God's name when it's told to them. It said a person who is separate in nature from God, from goodness, they neither know God's name nor understand what it means, even if they're told what his name is. Because he told you what his name is. According to the Old Testament, said, I am that I am. This will be my name forever. Forever didn't end when the New Testament was written, I assume. I assume that forever is still an underlining timeline for this title. Like, I am that I am. And this I amness lives inside of you, because it's this I amness that is the word and with the word. Take the John 1:1 epilogue. Metaphysically reframe it, repurpose it to push you ahead. Because that power that does all of these things, it lives in you. It gets defined as different things and different belief systems, even amongst different schools of thought, academia, like the difference between religion and motivational speaking, right? But both people are trying to motivate you to push yourself forward, whatever text they have to use or backdrop or context they have to use, but they're still ultimately trying to push you in a certain direction, whether it be just to boost their own sales and to boost their own revenue. They're still trying to push you somewhere, and it still takes that enthuse and that charisma, that charismos that animates the spirit. And this is the Christ nature. So it can get used in either way. It's simply a force of nature. And the character known as Jesus, his expression of the Christ was the way that he lived his life. Just like with Moses and whoever else you want to add, they're expressing their lives in Christ as such and such. You insert the person's name there. So you have this dark and light energy that has everything to do with whether or not this force is inside of you and outside of you. When a force like this is believed to be just outside of you, that's when you have the whole idea of trying to hide from it, trying to avoid it, trying to be opposite to it, have war with it, do a campaign against it. If you believe it's outside of you, if you believe it's inside of you, if you believe that Christ is inside of you, you're carrying yourself in a different way. You're not really looking at a person so much to judge them. You're making judgments based on the way your life should unfold. So you're living in judgment, but it's not of other people. You're living in judgment of how you should walk in the context of both being alone and among other people. So the judgment that involves other people is not the judging of them, is the judging of where your path should be. Judging in terms of being perceptive, knowing where to step and how to move, knowing what step to take, whether to go to the right or the left, or whether to just go straight. But if you don't have an internal compass or a sense of internal guidance, and if you don't feel any sense of intuition, then you're not gonna feel that I am presence. You're never gonna come to a point where you say, you know what, I have the power to do this. You'll never have that moment, perhaps, that something will push you in the corner to cause this stronger part of you to rise to the occasion. That may not be triggered, but these things can be triggered, and it's a major tool for your benefit in your life overall, just your daily, everyday life. So again, it's Super T Sigma of Sigma Programming. Thank you again for your time and attention. You already know reaching is teaching. If it takes 1 million videos to reach 1 million views, so be it. But in the meantime, know yourself for yourself. Peace.